in elementary school. I still remember my first tutoring moment. I was in grade 5 and I was asked to stay in for some lunch recesses to help kindergarten students learn to trace letters. And I loved it.
Welcome to the Chasing Squirrels podcast. This is episode 7, and on this episode, I'll be talking with Diana Danciu. Diana is a teacher candidate at York University and currently involved in her final practicum. Conversation tonight with Diana brought back a lot of memories from my time as a teacher candidate. And the stories that she shares in our conversation really put me back in that candidacy that I had just over 10 years ago. What I found remarkable was the fact that some of the stories, the origin stories that she and I shared, start to sound like common themes when you're beginning your work in education. And the flow of the combo I thought was really, really cool. I hope you enjoy this conversation, and I definitely look forward to touching base with Diana sometime in the future when she gets her contract and is in front of the classroom running the show all on her own. I'm pretty sure that that's going to be an amazing experience. Here's the episode.
All right. Good evening, Diana. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic. I would like to welcome you to the Chasing Squirrels podcast.
Thanks.
I'm thrilled to be able to. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm thrilled to be able to bring you to this show. I will say you are the first teacher candidate.
Oh, lots of pressure.
To come on the show. Well, it's but it's cool pressure.
Yeah,
it
is.
And one of the things that I can say I haven't been teaching a long time. I'm just over, I guess I'm in my 12th year.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the thrill of sort of being in one of my other podcasts, I was talking with a teacher, and I asked her if she's comfortable with being the only, not the best, but the only. And her name is AJ Gonzalez, and she said, she doesn't want to be the only, but if she has to be the only, she'll do it. She just hopes other people will come along with her.
Yeah.
And I thought a lot about that, about the power of being the only and kind of being the one that steps forward and goes for it. So big kudos for you for jumping in and coming out to play tonight.
It's been a big step out of my comfort zone.
Well, why is that? Why does it feel like it's going outside of your comfort zone?
I actually have a really big fear of public speaking. I've always had since I was a kid, which is funny because I'm going into teaching. Yeah. But for some reason, just like when I'm in front of a class and I do my placement, I'm totally fine. I'm totally comfortable. But then when I have to go in front of a tutorial in university or when I was in high school or elementary school, I just have a really big fear. I start getting really nervous, and I don't know. Just always been like that.
Well, I'll throw down. I wish I could throw out the sort of like the first time to podcasts badges for you, because I will say, I don't know. I don't think I have thousands of listeners, but I will tell you, definitely learning in a public forum like this,
mm-hmm.
and kind of sharing in a public forum and just going for it. I really do wish that there was this possibility when I was coming through faculty.
Yeah.
Because for me, it really was, I had my faculty advisor, so the individuals that I worked, my homeroom teacher, I went to U of T,
mm-hmm.
and I will tell you, he was phenomenal. Gentleman, his name is Michael Tudor,
mm-hmm.
and if he ever hears this podcast, a part of the energy that I bring to this is entirely because of him. Just sort of, he was so gregarious and so open and so willing to just help.
Yeah.
And I always think to myself, it's so powerful to be able to learn like this in public. And
mm-hmm.
you know what? Good for you for sort of stepping out and giving it a try. What do you think it is about this that doesn't make it feel necessarily like, what is it about teaching that doesn't make it feel like public speaking?
I don't know. I actually don't know, because before I applied to the program, my program and stuff like that, I didn't know how it was going to go. So when I went into my first placement, I told my MT, I'm like, I don't have a backup plan. Like, I don't have like anything to fall onto. Like, I want to be a teacher, but I've never taught a class before. So she told me after my first lesson that once I got up there, like, she knew how nervous I was before and like shaky and stuff like that. But she said once I got up there, you couldn't even tell I was nervous anymore
What
until
did it what did it feel like on the inside?
if when my I still remember my first lesson. It went by so quickly, and it just felt fun. I guess I don't know. Maybe I just feel more comfortable around students because I don't know. I really don't know what it is because I know how
It,
it feels to be them. Like when I was in high school and elementary school, and I was always so nervous in class to raise my hand or to get picked on by a teacher. So I don't know.
those are it's sort of a powerful word you threw down there. And you mentioned the picked on.
Hmm.
I still remember my grade 3 speech. Like like that. I can go right back there. My grade 3 speech was on Terry Fox,
Uh-huh.
and I was ready. I knew it. I had sort of read up on him so much.
Hmm.
I felt it. I was like at home, in front of the mirror, going through my cue cards, and then the moment came.
Yeah.
Chris Clough, Chris, come on up, and it was just like that cue, the way it was said, the class looking at me. I got up in front, and the shaking started,
Yeah.
and the shaking made it down into my hips. Like it probably looked like Dancing with the Stars, except it was with cue cards. And at some point, the cue cards all went and
Oh.
slipped out of my hand. And of
Yeah.
course, I hadn't numbered them. You know what it is? It's almost like the teacher's worst nightmare, except I was having it in grade 3.
Hmm.
And to this day, I have that as my kind of as my. I guess it's like the sensitivity trigger when I think about when I ask students to do things in class,
Hmm.
to measure not only their preparedness and the actual having some eyes on the task that they're supposed to do ahead of time. That's always good to have you actually finish the task. I'm not going
Yeah.
to out you in front of the whole group, but also the mental preparedness. So it's not just that content stuff. Like, what's their state of mind, and trying to create those opportunities for that they don't feel like they're picked on. Because that was a powerful word that you said, and it if I were to guess, probably plays into the public speaking thing for you.
Yeah, I just always felt like in elementary school and high school, there wasn't enough opportunity to have discussions like you do in
Mm-hmm.
university tutorial classrooms where you can kind of just come together and just talk about a reading that you did, right? It's always kind of just like the teacher asks a question, someone raises their hand. So it was always like, I just never had the opportunity to get comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's what
I
I would, sorry.
No, go ahead.
That's what I would like to be able to do in my own classrooms in the future, like have students be comfortable. So, yeah, it just because I know how it feels to not be ready to answer a question, to be scared to be wrong, and then the teacher just asks you to answer it, but you don't have an answer prepared, or you're just scared that something might come out wrong. And then the same thing you described, like just getting shaky and yeah.
I can think back on it now, and I mean, I often tell the story in class when I'm trying to kind of cajole and help and build students to be able to speak in front of the class. And
Hmm.
they always get a good laugh out of it. But I do have to kind of, I have to set myself upright to tell the story because it's a powerful memory for me.
Hmm.
I think it's a transformational memory for me when
Yeah.
I think back, like that turning point, that thing that when I go back and you sort of look at some of those life lessons that, as you become a young adult, if you have the time to become reflective, you're like, yeah, that was the moment that I learned. That was the moment that my paradigms kind of shifted.
Hmm.
So what I'd like to know is what is your sort of coming to teaching story? What sort of brought this as you've already kind of mentioned is that no backup plan. You're going for it, just like going for the teaching. But
Yeah.
what put it on the radar in the first place?
Well, it's actually funny because when you talk to most teachers or teacher candidates, everyone always says, well, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be a teacher. But my story is actually really different. Throughout high school, I juggled between so many different career ideas because I couldn't decide on anything. Like I come from a family that's so math, science based. Like my parents are both mechanical engineers, so math was really important. Not that they forced me to go in that direction, but that's kind of just kind of what was important. So in high school, I went from wanting to be like an optometrist, from pharmacologist, from at one point when I finally decided I wanted to go into English for university, that's when I was kind of like, well, what am I going to do? Journalism? I don't know. And then I still remember the day I was at my friend's house and my mom was talking with her friends. They, bunch of moms that I grew up with, and they were like, why don't you be a high school English teacher? And I'm like, huh, that sounds cool. So then I started to do research into it, and then I started to think about it more, and I'm like, I love helping kids. I've always done tutoring since in elementary school. I still remember my first tutoring moment. I was in grade 5 and I was asked to stay in for some lunch recesses to help kindergarten students learn to trace letters. And I loved it. So I was like, well, if this is something I enjoy, and I loved English because of my tutor that I had in high school who really brought out writing and my love for reading. And yeah, so then I started to look into it that way, and then yeah, that's how it came to me. In grade 12, I dropped advanced functions for an e-learning course called Intro to Literary Study, and then yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. It's interesting because I feel what you bring to mind is that my path to teaching is not. It's quite asymmetrical, and if one of the questions I've asked other people was sort of, did you find teaching or did teaching find you? Mm-hmm. You know, just kind of like a catchy way to sort of bring out the story as to how have you become who you are right now in the classroom. For me, my parents, there was no pressure to be a thing. Like there was no pressure where they said to me, we would really like you. Like I have no memory of them ever saying, geez, you know, it'd be really nice, a doctor? Like, do you think you want to be a doctor or a lawyer? Like, they never threw down like that.
Yeah.
They were always very much of the mind. Well, one, I was very independent from a young age. Mm-hmm. Sort of had my own work. I got a job. I got money. I maintained sort of like a B average. And when I went to university, it was really easy to go. I thinking back, like my marks were in the 70s.
Yeah.
I was just accepted to all the universities that I applied to, and then I decided to go to the one that none of my friends went to. So I literally just launched out of my hometown and said, I'm out of here. But it's I sort of worked in restaurants all through high school.
Yeah.
And then went to university for art and drama and French and sociology and psychology. Ended up just staying in drama, worked in restaurants at the same time, then finished university, traveled, got my chef's papers, became a snowboard instructor, then came back and did some acting, then moved to Toronto and then did some more chefing. And then I was kind of at a point where I was like, what else am I going to do? And at that point, just like it was for you, someone said, well, why don't you become a teacher? And I'm like, what? Well, And then I did the same thing. I started to do research. I started looking, I'm like, I could actually do this thing. Mm-hmm. Me, I could be a teacher. And then it kind of walked. Like it became all of a sudden.
Yeah, exactly.
What was the moment for you where it went from the idea and the research and then it became something that you really wanted?
I think when I first applied for university, I just applied for Bachelor's of English. So I got accepted to York because I was planning to apply to the concurrent program. And I did that. I applied to it in first year so I could get accepted for second year of university. And I think it was once I got accepted, because I did that application, like that was something I did on my own. I wrote my statement on my own. I got it. I didn't have anyone edit it or look over it. And then I got accepted and I was like, whoa, like this must be a sign. My parents were so proud of me because they were the same. They didn't push me into anything. They were just like, do what makes you happy. And then they were so proud of me. I was so proud of myself. And I was like, hey, I think this is for me. And then once I actually finally got into my placement, I started teaching my first lessons. It just fell in place. Like it just felt right.
That's so cool. Do you have any memory of when I think back? So for me, thinking about me finding teaching or teaching finding me, do you have sort of memories or moments looking back before the idea that teaching came into your head? Let's say that it kind of became that crystallized thing in your head.
Hmm.
Can you go back and think of moments where you were already kind of test driving the idea, but your brain wasn't saying, "Hey, you could become a teacher"? I think back, I had a few moments throughout high school and definitely through my culinary, during my culinary years. Like I was writing manuals, I was training young chefs. When I was out, when I traveled out west, snowboard instructor, like I was teaching there. At university, I was a TA, a construction TA for the drama department.
Yeah.
But all of that happened before my awareness of a teacher ever came down the pipe.
Hmm.
Can you think back on the past where you were doing these teacher things that sort of like all of a sudden when you're writing down on your proposal, like what other alternative teaching experience have you had? You're like, oh my gosh, I did this and I did that. How did I not notice this? What do you think? Can you think back? Do you have any memories like that?
Yeah, I actually do, because like I said, I did tutoring. So my first memory is when I was in grade 5 and I tutored kindergarten students. I also got asked by a lot of my teachers in elementary school to tutor my friends. I had one friend that was having trouble with science, and we were sitting in my kitchen and I was trying to help her, and she was like, "Man, Diana, can you just give me the answer?" And I still remember telling her, like, "No, I want you to get to the answer on your own." And it's
Bravo.
so funny.
Good for you. Good for you.
It's so funny to think back on that. And then in high school, like, I edited a lot of my friends' papers. Like, I would help them with, because I had an English tutor, so I guess people looked up to me like someone who was really good at English. So I would help them with that. And yeah, I think those were some of those moments where I just always wanted to help people.
That's cool. That's cool. You made me think of, oh God, maybe I had to be in grade 4, and the the family that was babysitting my sister and I, their oldest daughter was in grade 8, and I just thought of this. But it's sort of hilarious and just slightly strange. So I'm in grade 4, and I was helping their grade 8 daughter with her English homework.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, I know curriculum is, it's a little bit more kind of fluid at the elementary level,
Yeah.
but fundamentally, developmentally, there is something different between a grade 4 student and a grade 8 student in the content. But I can remember, and I'm sure they did the best they could. Like I said, I wasn't a great kid, but it was a bit of a strange family, and I was tutoring their oldest daughter. But that's so funny, like having that experience and then the expectation again. And like I also helped their next daughter down with math, and I'm not a math person at all.
Yeah.
She was even a math person. So I guess there's one more thing I could put in there. Yes, I was teaching even at elementary school.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So long ago. Can you think of anyone in particular that was kind of like held that door open for you, sort of kept that opportunity there, that some people in the past have said their parents, somebody, like that formative teacher, but do you have a memory of a coach or a teacher that sort of kind of became that, a little bit of that template or that model of, yeah, that teacher, like I didn't realize how sort of important they were until I started thinking about how they treated me or what they sort of helped me with or how they talked with me. Anything pop up?
Yeah, I actually have, because we talk about this in our ed classes and stuff like that, and I actually have a lot of teachers that, because, yeah, my parents always helped me, they always challenged me and stuff like that, but they're my parents, right? And I remember in elementary school, I had my grade 7 teacher. She always challenged me, and she was always kind of like intimidating but really funny at the same time. And I still remember in grade 8, she wasn't my teacher anymore, but I didn't get any awards at graduation, and I was so bummed out about it. And I still remember walking by her in the hallway. She's like, I would have given you an award if I had a choice. And I was like, wow, like you actually believed in me. I had a different teacher who she was a kindergarten teacher and she never taught me. I never had her as a teacher, but she actually I was really into long distance running in grade 7 and 8. And
Hmm.
in grade 8 when I was training for cross country and then after when I was training for track, she would stay with me after school for an hour and she would train me because she was a marathon runner.
Wow.
And she would train with me and she would teach me about what to eat before a race, how to keep your pace during the race, and then to sprint in those last few seconds. And I still, when I think about it now, I'm like, she didn't have to do that. She didn't have to do that, right? Like she
Right.
didn't, I wasn't her student. I didn't even know of her in the school until I started doing cross country and track. And yeah, now that I think about it, I'm like, wow, like she just cared, you know? She just saw something in me and she cared. And then in in high school, I had my French teacher in grade. Hello?
I'm still here. I muted my mic so I can.
Oh,
So
sorry. Everything
no,
just
no.
everything turned
Did you
off.
get did you get really quiet all of a sudden? I won't do that again. Sorry.
No, sorry. No, I didn't. I'm still not used to this podcasting
Right?
stuff, so I don't know. I had a grade 11, grade 10 and grade 11 French teacher, and in grade 11 I had a little bit of a hard time in school, and I was never the type of student to give attitude in class. But I was
Hmm.
having a really bad day. I remember this so clearly, and I was having such a bad day, and I don't remember what I said, but I think I kind of said something, and then she said something, and then I kind of got a little bit angry, and then there was kind of that moment in class, but I was never this type of student. And then near the end of class, she just walked by and she left a note on my desk. And then I opened it. And it was like, Diana, I'm so sorry for upsetting you. I didn't mean to do that, whatever. And then I wrote her a note back and I'm like, I'm so sorry for whatever. We were just apologizing through notes. And it's just these teachers that either challenged me or either just cared about me that really made a difference in my life.
That's. I think that's a very potent combination, and I share your sentiments. Like my memories of some of the teachers that stick with me, and it's for good and bad, but it has less to do with the content. And this
Hmm.
quote has been said time and time and time again. It's not about what they taught you. It's how they taught you.
Yeah,
It's about how the teacher made you feel, and maybe how they made you think, not how they
hmm,
made you memorize something.
exactly. Yeah.
So what do you take forward through that? So right now you're a teacher candidate with
Hmm.
York University.
Yes.
Are you you're in a practicum right now? Yes.
Yeah, I'm once a week, and then in April I have my 20-day block.
So before we get, I want to talk a little bit about just the reality of being in practicum and how that changes from the classroom experience.
Hmm.
But taking cues from some of those teachers that challenged and cared for you, what becomes a little bit of your mission as you step into the classroom? So without hanging it on any particular content, what type of a person do you aim to be with these students?
I guess what I'd really like and what I take from those teachers that I had is that I want to be like someone that my students can trust and someone that my students will know that I'm there to support them. Like if they need help, not to be ashamed to come to me and ask questions or to know that I'm not there to judge them if they make a mistake and that um, I want my classrooms in the future to be an environment where students are comfortable and to say something even if they don't feel 100% about what they're saying because that was something I didn't have at all in elementary or high school in many of my classes that I was always so scared to say something because I was scared that I was going to be wrong or that students were going to make fun of me for saying something stupid or something like that. So I want to be just that figure that can, make students feel comfortable to try things out, to take risks. Like we even spoke on the On Ed Mentors podcast, like just a space where students can take risks. I want to be able to bring that.
Awesome. So I'm going to put a question to you then that I didn't get a chance to get to when we were talking on Ed Mentors.
Mm-hmm.
So what is, I think you mentioned this at the tail end, it was the wrap up of it. Specifically in this practicum that you're in right now and going to be growing into, what is something sort of positive that you're developing that is kind of risky for you? So what's the thing that you're sort of taking a chance on yourself, or taking a chance on the students, or taking a chance on learning it in public? Just like this whole, I'm going to say you pretty much burst through the bubble of public speaking fear.
Mm-hmm.
I've made the joke before. My thousands and thousands of listeners will have no idea that you have a fear of public speaking. Totally joking, right? But so what bubble do you feel like you could be pushing through in this practicum? How do you challenge yourself?
Well, this block is actually going to be a real challenge for me because I'm going to be teaching a lot of units that are out of my teachables. So my teachables are English and history, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be teaching a unit on math, geography, I think dance, gym, all these things that I pretty much know nothing about. But I want to be able to make it fun, and I want to. We talked about this on On Ed Mentors about doing things outside of your teachables and stuff like that, and that you're learning at the same time as the students, and that's actually what I've been doing when I'm at my placement once a week, and they do math, and I go around the classroom to help them with their worksheets and stuff like that. Last week we were doing fractions, and a student asked me a question, and they were like, I don't know how to do this question. And I actually had no idea how to do it either. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be right back. I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to be right back. And then I went to another student in the class that knew how to do it. And I'm like, how do you do this question? And he told me. I'm like, thank you so much. And then I went back to the other student. I'm like, I found out from this other student, and I'm going to tell you right now how to do it. And then he figured it out, and it worked out. And it's kind of like, pardon?
It's awesome. No, I was going to say it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's let alone the fact. So I teach in high school. I don't think I will ever be given the opportunity to teach dance, but I got to tell you, like my jaw would just hit the again. Okay, so my current portfolio, it's not likely in my current portfolio. I work with students that have been expelled and suspended. It's not likely I'm going to get a dance course that comes my way. But I look forward to the opportunity. It's such a crazy idea to me, but I look forward to the opportunity. If somewhere, it's not likely just because I don't. At high school, the certifications are a little bit different. I think I would actually have to have some sort of dance training.
Yeah.
But I look forward to connecting with you after you've taught dance. Are you a dancer? Can you dance?
No, I'm not a dancer.
No, you don't consider yourself a dancer?
No.
Because it's one of those. I have a colleague from a long time back. His name is Gordon, and I can remember him. This is when I was still in the restaurant business. Teaching wasn't there yet, and he stepping into a elementary. I think it was probably SK or grade 1, and he was still working at the restaurant on weekends. And he came in, and the look on his face was, "I'm teaching French. I'm teaching math. I'm teaching English. I'm teaching." I forget the arts that he said he was teaching. And I looked at him like, wow, like I always thought I can't say always because I can't remember myself exactly in elementary, but I had no clue from that end of the lens that there were so many layers to an elementary teacher's day. I've since then learned, like, I am mind blown at the complexity of an elementary school teacher's day.
Yeah.
I really am.
Yeah, because my first placement was high school, and I was in an English class, so it was a lot of English. And then in your second year of the education program, if you're in the intermediate senior division, that means you're grade 7 to 12. So they want to put you in elementary school so you can experience grade 7 or grade 8. And
Yep.
when I met my MT this year and I realized how much she has to teach, I'm like, oh my God, am I going to be able to do this? Like, I haven't done math since high school.
Mm-hmm. I still love it though. Like I love the idea that because in high school it's a fairly new idea. So the kind of there was a time in high school where in secondary in Ontario where if you had a specific qualification you would sort of only be teaching in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, it was often said that let's say you had a science background and you were teaching science at high school, that anybody could be teaching a grade 9 or grade 10 course.
Yeah.
So if they were trying to fill out your schedule, well, you might have for a full-time schedule, you might have science, but you know what? You're kind of low on the seniority, so we need someone to help out with careers or to do a grade 9 English.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as it didn't sort of trip the kind of like the safety hazard, because there are some courses that you need some pretty specific safety training or technical training, like working in a wood shop, you could be given that course.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the sort of like the rules of engagement have changed, and it was sort of, I think it was about maybe 5 years ago, that now what it is that if you have an intermediate qualification, and some people are just qualified in intermediate, you can teach any course in grade 9 and 10.
Yeah, I heard about that too.
Yeah, and if you have a senior qualification, you can teach anything at intermediate and senior. The only tripwire is the safety and specific training point of view. So
Mm-hmm.
it could be asked. And I have had colleagues that, they're history majors and they've been given a grade 11 economics course.
Yeah. When I went back to my high school and I saw that French teacher that I had, I was asking her how she was because my first placement, I got to go back to my old high school.
That's cool.
So I was asking her, I'm like, hey, how are you? And she's like, I'm teaching geography. And she's like, I can't remember the last time I did geography. I'm a French teacher. I'm like, that's crazy.
What was her energy around it? I'm curious. What was her energy around having to teach it? Did she find the silver lining?
She was always such a positive, optimistic person. So she didn't seem upset or fazed about it. She seemed excited, but at the same time, she was like surprised and excited.
Of course. And I think that's really valuable. I'm glad that you had that experience. I really do. I'm so glad that you have that experience. I do believe fundamentally that if you have cool training in a subject area and you love that subject area and you're willing to just go to the nth of the universe to be awesome at that subject area,
Mm-hmm.
I really do want you teaching in that subject area.
Yeah.
I do. I believe that in my heart. But I also, and as well, I recognize that the classroom and school, as we know it, is changing. And it's kind of changing a little bit around us. And the expectation to only be a content specialist is changing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, how does faculty frame that? So when you're in the classroom, I'll take us back one step. When I went to faculty, I was fortunate because I came in, so I had an undergraduate degree, but I came in as a tech teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And the program, I went to U of T, the program that they had there, I was with other technology teachers. So I was in a cohort where there were electricians, there were plumbers, there were carpenters, mechanics, there were some Cosmo, like estheticians, because
Mm-hmm.
they were all considered trades.
Yeah.
And we never had any courses on our trade.
Mm-hmm.
All of our courses were on how to teach, theories of pedagogy, styles of pedagogy, classroom management, homeroom. Like it was all very technical from a teacher. Like it was all pedagogically centered.
Yeah.
I can remember sitting in the library and listening to some science teacher candidates, and they were taking courses in science and how to teach science, but it was basically a science course.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was talking about their practicum and saying how, they had to use an overhead. I'm dating myself a little bit. I imagine there's still overheads out there.
Yeah,
But
there are.
yeah, I know, overhead projectors. But they were talking about, they totally forgot how it can be reversed slightly. You got to make sure, like, when you shift, it's kind of left is right, up is down, and when you're writing, don't stand up to the ball because you blind yourself. Like, all these little, like, nuances of using educational tech. And I'm thinking to myself, that was actually just part of my last 2 lessons on how to position yourself when you're writing on the board so you can see your class, how to understand the muscle memory so that your hand is up and you can sort of gesture with the other hand, how to keep your eyes on the class, how to use the overhead projector. And I realized in that my teacher's college experience was very different than some of my science and math friends.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, and I was being taught to be a teacher, not to sort of deliver my content. And friend, this is 12 years ago. How does that look now when they talk about you being a teacher? Do they distinguish between you being a teacher and you teaching your content?
So,
or do they kind of lump it together?
we have a lot of different kinds of classes, but we do have classes on how to teach. For example, I took a course on how to teach English, and then I took a course, I just finished it in February actually, how to teach history. And my English one we were actually taught like lesson planning for English, ideas for activities for English classes. But in my history one this year, my course director, she took it in a whole different way. We focused more on social justice, equity, and stuff like that, not really how to teach history, because she knew that we did have assignments that were based on like history or law or geography, but we focused more on how to be a teacher to our students and how to check our biases and things like that. But things like learning how to use an overhead and stuff, these are all workshops now. Like if you want to learn how to use a smartboard, you pay $50 for a workshop. Or if you want to learn how to make a resume, you got to go to a workshop. And everything is workshops now.
They had some of that when I was there. The one that I remember that fell outside of what we were being specifically, I guess, in class, the Between the Bells courses that we took. At the time, there was quite a few sort of like 2 and 3 hour sessions at night around special education.
Yeah, right now I'm in an inclusive, we call it inclusive education.
Yep.
We have a course on that. Yeah.
Yeah, they framed it, they went from special education and they started to use a term more of diverse learners. So they kind of broadened the focus, so it would also include English language learners, also different layers within special education, whether you're working with students with MID or it could be with developmental disabilities. So they included some of those pieces. But I remember they were add-ons. They were add-ons, and I always wondered at the time. Actually, it was not a wonder. I questioned, as an add-on, would it be important to me to take the stuff that wasn't a part of my core. So, and unquestionably, it would have been. I should have taken it. I ended up taking my special education 1 as soon as I finished faculty, which helped. But it's interesting that those add-ons sometimes are integral.
Yeah, so for me, this inclusive education course I chose as an elective, but now at York they've recently revamped the consecutive and the concurrent programs. Now, for consecutive and concurrent students, it's mandatory to take. Yeah.
That's good. I think that is good.
Yeah, for sure.
And when so much now is being filtered through, the student success and growing success document, and the layers that have sort of like built out from that, which include, development of IUP, and then you start to look at some of the equity papers that come out as well. It's the more we really are in a place where we're moving further and further from content specialists into the area of, having to know the neuroscience, having to know the mental wellness science, having to know the learning style and learning development science. There's a lot of stuff out there that it's almost really difficult to be just a history teacher.
Yeah.
Just a history teacher. So where I'd like to go next, if we could, is sort of, and I know it's early in your career, but I'm getting the sense like you got some of this stuff locked. Like you feel confident to me. Do you feel confident?
It varies from day to day. If I have a good day, I'll feel confident. If I have a bad day, I'll like those days. But I can say that I do feel confident that I can be a teacher.
Good.
But I just feel like I wish I had for the last year of my since I'm in my last year, I'm graduating in June. I wish I had more of mentorship, which I've actually seeked out myself through going on Twitter and being a part of this stuff. But I feel like a lot of MTs that take on teacher candidates in their last year think we know everything by now when we've only had 1 year before where we were in placement. So, and I've heard these concerns from other people in my program and stuff like that. So it's not just me, but yeah, I just feel like everyone seems to think that we should know everything by now and have everything down locked and be ready for the real world. And I do feel like I am, but yeah, I feel like I didn't get as much mentorship this year compared to my last placement.
There is we've within the mentors group, and we've had conversations about that. And one of the questions that I posed to the group, I think I got to host 2 weeks in a row, which was pretty cool. And one of the questions I asked, I just forget which week it was, is to the mentors. Well, I guess it also was the teacher candidates as well. But what is the proper way to sort of honor the teacher candidate coming in? Like, what is the best way to welcome them into the classroom? And there was a lot of different kind of POVs on it, different sort of perspectives as far as what the teacher candidate, like what they have access to. Access is the wrong word. How is their sort of taking over of the classroom? How is that staged or scaffolded? So I'm curious from your perspective then, what worked? What worked, as you're coming into your practicums, where you felt like where you were in your learning was honored by what you were asked to do in the classroom?
Well, my first placement, when I was back at my old high school, I had my MT was one of my old English teachers, and she's the department head, and she was amazing. Like, I feel like from that year I learned so much from her. And the way she kind of did it was, I still remember the first day I came into her class, she just put down this whole folder of the outline of the year, her contact information, all her resources, and class lists and everything like that. She's like, I'm here to give you everything you need to succeed, right? And the way we did it was, I started doing lessons once a week because I was in once a week. She would say, this is what you're going to teach, but send me by Sunday night an idea of a lesson. Come up with it on your own, right? So Sunday night, I would email her my idea of how I think the lesson should look. And then by Monday night, she would email me back saying, this is good, this is what you might need to fix, this is what you could, just constructive criticism. And then I would email her back like a good copy until we were satisfied. And then Wednesday I would come in and I would teach my lesson. And during my lesson, she would write down comments on my lesson plan about what I did well, what I need to work on, and then we would talk about it after. And we did this every single week. And it was so great. And I know it might seem like a lot of work, and she was really busy. She was busy all the time, but she still made that effort for me to give me what I needed to succeed. And that, like, I will always be forever grateful to her for that. And I feel like that is like the ideal mentor teacher in my eyes.
And you know what? I would have to agree with you. That's phenomenal. I think that type of discussion frame, I think that type of expectation on you, I think that kind of collaboration back and forth, the push and pull, and here's an idea, and what about this?
Yeah.
That is great.
Yeah.
That is great. At what point within that placement did you have a glimpse of the reality of teaching? So I can remember back, there were moments where I really felt, I think back to my associate that I worked with, one in particular, I felt like they had just left everything to me. Like there was too much wide open space for me. And then my second one stayed with me every step of the way. Not getting in my way, not nudging me, but just I knew that she was there to sort of help me out. But my first one, I had a sense like it was just a little bit too wide open space for me to be in. And I knew the theory, and I'd done the assignments, but I don't know if I got the best of what it felt. I don't know if I got the best of what it felt like to be a teacher candidate, because I wasn't prepared for the openness of being a teacher that they offered me. Like I didn't have anywhere to put that experience. So within your first, what were some of your early practicums or your practicum now, was there a particular moment where you're like, I am a teacher. I did it. Today, I was a teacher. Do you have a moment like that?
Yeah, actually, when I did my block, she had to do, she would sometimes be away to do workshops, right? So there would be a supply teacher in the class, and she would tell this right in her day plan that, you know what, for these classes, the student teacher is going to take over, right? And then she would tell me beforehand, and I would be like, are you sure I can do this? Like, you're not going to be in the room. What if I mess up? She's like, you're not going to mess up. You're going to be fine. Don't worry. I have faith in you. And I'm like, okay. And then the days went very well. There were ups and downs sometimes because classroom management is always something very difficult for me. Yep. And I know it's something that is going to take time. There's no one can tell you how to manage a class. You need to learn from experience, right? And They were grade 9 students, so they were wild. But just being able to take over those classes and her having her faith in me based on how she gave me the tools to succeed, those were the moments for me where I was like, wow, I'm going to be a teacher. I can do this.
That's awesome. Those moments I can remember, it's funny, in that first practicum, just having the associate, me feeling like I was left alone in the practicum. I actually felt, and there were two occasions too where the associate was at PD day things, not PD day because I would have been off too, but like you're right, a conference or out for some sort of training. And I knew that I was going to have to plan to take care of everything. The 2 days when they were away, I had it. Like I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and there was sort of supply teachers in with me, but I ran the show. Yeah. And it's a funny thing when you got it locked, you can do it. You can do it. And I think I felt more nervous the days where I kind of knew what we were going to do, and the teacher was in the building, or maybe the next class was over, but was sort of just leaving me to do my thing. It's a very strange sort of mixed up kind of psychology, because I actually felt like I did better on the 2 days when they weren't there, and I did have everything all ready to roll. It felt awesome.
Yeah, I know that feeling exactly, because when I feel like I would be more nervous teaching in front of my MT, and I would feel more intimidated, especially when sometimes other teachers would be in the classroom talking to her, and I would be doing my lesson. I'm like, oh my God, these teachers are watching me. What if I mess up? But then when I was around the students, just me and like the supply teacher in the corner, I felt more confident in myself.
Yeah. Totally. I have the exact same memory. That's awesome. It's funny how the further distance I get from those early days talking with educators, it's such a common starting point that we have. The nervousness, can I do this? What will the students think? Can I control the students? What is that student's name again? Like all these things. It's such a common story. Everyone has their small nuances to it.
Yeah.
We've all lived. It's such a cool kind of unifying story. I mean, for the good stuff, for the stuff that's not so good, you're like, oh, come on, it has not changed yet. But, for the stuff like this, where we're all beginners and apprentices,
Yeah.
cool kind of like to have this origin story.
Mm-hmm.
So where I'd like to end off tonight is talking a little bit about the future.
Mm-hmm.
So it's early in your career. I am curious as to if you can sort of push yourself into, let's say, somewhere in the first 5 years of teaching. So you're there and you've got your full-time placement at a school and you're teaching something,
Mm-hmm.
won't say exactly, but you'll be teaching something. What is it that you see sort of coming down the pipe in education? What's a thing that's curious to you, or what's a thing that you hope will be there when you have your full-time contract? Or you could even talk about a project that you think, yeah, when I get that contract, here's a thing I would like to do.
Oh, this is a hard question. I would love to. I want to learn how to incorporate technology a lot more because I'm very fascinated by it and I do use it a lot, but hearing about all the different ways to use it in a classroom just really boggles my mind, and I would like to learn to use it more because I feel like students are really connected to that and they really get more excited about that as well. So I'd like to be able to take on more of that. Like I hear about Google Classroom and all this stuff, and I'd like to look into that and learn more about that and just different ways to incorporate technology, but also bringing more of a sense of community into the classroom. When I was in high school, the drama students were always talking about how they were a family and stuff like that, and I never had that feeling in any of my classrooms that I was a family with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to bring that into my own classrooms, this sense of family where everyone's comfortable with each other, where everyone can take risks around each other and everyone can just learn together instead of being in competition or being scared to say something. It's not a big project or anything, but it's something that I would really like to see education go in that direction, where it's brings students more together, where they can learn together instead of just everyone like at their own desk. Like, yeah.
I think to say you're onto something, you're in the right place. You're in the right headspace. Mm-hmm. There's so many initiatives that flow through the school that focus on something that needs to be measured,
mm-hmm.
to be organized, and something that needs to be kind of categorized, and stuff that sort of ultimately ends in marks.
Yeah.
You said the word family, and I've been in that conversation before with other school leaders, and sometimes that type of language, I don't know if it's entirely rooted in our concept of education right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's suggested. We sometimes say community. We sometimes say connectivity. But that idea of family that's a powerful tool for creating cool communities. If you can accept that as part of your pedagogy, building family. And mm-hmm. It does come back to sort of where we started before, what you get your kids to feel and then think about and then do. God, that's going to last with them for a lot longer than their 85%
yeah.
on an mm-hmm. EQAO test.
Mm-hmm. So
you're on the right track with that. And and I will tell you that as a project or that as a pursuit, that's a long game. It is a long game, and
mm-hmm.
I wish you the best of effort wherever it turns out. No, because it is one of those things, and I don't say that sarcastically. I say because there's a lot of room for you to play with that one.
Mm-hmm.
So, any last words you want to throw down? You want to tell people where you can be found if they want to continue the conversation? Where would you like to be connected with?
I started up my Twitter just 2 months ago, just at Miss Danciu. That's so far that's all I got. Right now I'm really into Royan's Doodle a Day thing for March, so I've been participating in that a lot. It's been a lot of fun, actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I really like it. And yeah.
One of the things I'll tell you is keep tabs of little kind of projecty things like that on social, like your PLN, and when you see that pick up in Twitter, it's kind of cool because you get a lot of really interesting people all collected around kind of a fun task.
Yeah.
But that's also the individuals that are choosing to play a part of that. There's two things to that. I had in the conversation with Royan when I talked to him, his aha moment with social media was the fact that not only at one point it was, we sort of started with that idea of posting a lot of stuff and just sort of like pushing out content. And both he and he put it into words so much better than me, but your responsibility for the audience or where that stuff lands, that type of social contract, but in the digital world, serves you very well, because what that means is you're creating something that is positive and plausible in not only real life, but in your digital life. And I will tell you, some of the people that are playing with Royan right now are some pretty cool thinkers. Like, they're all drawing and doodling copy stains and, stick people.
Yeah.
But check their profiles and check to see where they're teaching and reach out and say, I love that stick figure, yo. Like, and you know what I mean? Like you reach out and you close that loop, and then all of a sudden you got one more person you can talk to. It's a wonderful way to build your PLN, through that authentic, honoring their effort, and just starting a conversation. So you'll grow with it for sure.
Yeah. It's been great so far. So I can't wait to see where it goes.
That's awesome. Well, Diana, it was awesome talking with you tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
You're very, very welcome. How about I'll cut you a deal. If you want, I'm sure we're going to pass on the digital halls between now and whenever. But I definitely we'll set sort of like a penciled in date for when when you get that contract, whatever it is, whether it's part-time or full-time. And maybe we can do a revisit. We'll come back and we'll do some of the highlight reel from this conversation and see what it's like in that first week or two of your contract placement.
Yeah, sounds great.
You think? And if the edu gods smile upon me, I'll still be doing podcasts then. I hope so. I dig it. It's a lot of fun doing this.
Yeah, it's also great. Like, I think a lot of people are getting into it as well. Like, today I was listening to the last half of yours with Derek in my car. And I was like, why haven't I been listening to podcasts all this time instead of just listening to the same songs repeat on the radio over and over again?
That was my path to come out of it too. The one challenge that I'll give you is something that I've learned. I love listening to my colleagues and colleagues I haven't met yet talk about edu theory. Some of the most valuable lessons that I've learned about teaching were not from podcasts about teaching. So we can talk about that. I can share some resources with you on Twitter if you're curious, but it's building the big picture of self that sort of falls outside the sort of bells of the lines of you being a teacher. And it's always great to get the new ideas from the frontier. But there's also a parallel universe that exists around teaching. And we don't, education is not waterproof or thought-proof or soundproof. So that cool stuff that you bring in from the outside can be awesome in the classroom.
Yeah. And
surprising to your students, because you're not just thinking from inside the English bubble or just inside the math bubble or just inside the history bubble. You're porous and welcoming. So I'll share some stuff if you're curious. I can sort of connect you with the links.
Yeah, for sure.
And I wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you.
I'm thrilled for you and whatever step you take next, and the best of luck with your practicum this semester.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Have a good night.
You too.
If you enjoyed what you heard on this podcast, please go to iTunes and subscribe to Chasing Squirrels. You can follow me, Chris Clough, at Chris J. Clough on Twitter. You can also find me on my blog, and that is Go Beyond Binders, and you can find that on Blogger. Please leave comments. Please connect. Please reach out. I'd love to talk to you if you want to be on my podcast. Hope you have a great evening. Take care.